34 unforced errors. That is what Aryna Sabalenka put on the board against Sorana Cirstea in Rome. 34 from the woman who, entering this clay season, was being spoken about the way people used to talk about Steffi Graf on Red Dirt, like the outcome was a formality, like the draw was just a bracket of obstacles waiting to be brushed aside. And now we are sitting here 2 weeks out from Roland Garros, genuinely asking whether the world number one is actually the favorite anymore. I'll tell you exactly what I think, and I'll tell you why Andy Roddick, a man who does not traffic in comfortable takes, is still backing her. But I'll also tell you what nobody else is saying about the three women circling this situation like hawks. I was looking at the tape from the Cirstea match, specifically that third game of the second set, when Sabalenka went for the inside out forehand on a second serve she absolutely should have redirected cross court. Her hip rotation was half a beat late. Not much, maybe 40 milliseconds if you freeze frame it. But on clay, where your margin for error on that shot is already compressed by the surface speed, 40 milliseconds is a forehand that clips the tape instead of landing 6 inches inside the line. That is not a mental error. That is a physical compensation. That is someone protecting something. And given that Sabalenka called the trainer for a lower back issue during that match, I think the picture becomes very, very clear. Now, here's the bit that actually bothers me. The narrative being spun right now is that Sabalenka is in crisis. That word crisis is doing so much dishonest heavy lifting in the tennis media right now. Let's be precise about what actually happened. She lost to Hailey Baptiste in Madrid, a player who, and I say this with full respect, had been serving at a level that day that you genuinely see once a tournament, maybe once a month on the WTA Tour. Baptiste's first serve percentage in that match was extraordinary, and she was hitting her kick serve to Sabalenka's backhand, the right hip, the awkward contact point, with a consistency that disrupted Sabalenka's return position entirely. Then Rome, same pattern, a physical issue compounding technical errors that are not normal for this player. Two tournaments, not 2 months. 2 weeks, and the eulogies are already being written. Roddick said it best on Served, and I want to sit with this for a moment because he is not just throwing out a hot take. This is a man who played through back injuries on tour, who understands exactly what a back spasm does to your ability to coil on a forehand. He said Sabalenka is being judged against her own shadow. That is the most precise 3 words anyone has used to describe this situation. She has set such a preposterous standard of consistency. Grand Slam finals, dominant hard court seasons, a game that barely has a weakness. That when she drops 2 matches in a row, the entire tennis world behaves as though something structural has collapsed. It has not. A back issue is not a loss of talent. It is a calendar problem. If you're a purist, you're going to hate this, but the real story here is not Sabalenka. The real story is what her wobble does to the psychology of 8 or 9 other players who arrive in Paris genuinely believing, perhaps for the first time in years, that the bracket is open. Roddick raised the names himself: Linda Noskova, Marta Kostyuk, and I want to add 3 more to that conversation because this is where the French Open gets genuinely complicated. Iga Swiatek. Let's start there because you cannot talk about Roland Garros without talking about the woman who owns it. She has 4 titles on that court. She knows the bounce. She knows the win patterns through Stade Roland Garros. She knows how to win a 3 set match at 10 p.m. when the lights are on and the court plays completely differently. On clay, her heavy topspin forehand, she generates some of the highest RPM numbers on the WTA Tour, becomes genuinely oppressive. Baseline rallies turn into a war of attrition that Swiatek almost always wins because she can redirect pace, absorb pace, and change the depth of her shot mid-rally in a way that is still unmatched in the women's game. Is she at the level she was in 2022-23? No. But on clay, the gap between Swiatek and everyone else narrows considerably, and if Sabalenka comes in undercooked, that gap might be enough. Coco Gauff. Now, here's a name I want you to watch very carefully over the next 2 weeks. I was looking at how Gauff has been moving on clay this season. Her court coverage has been exceptional, and what has improved noticeably is her ability to construct a point rather than just react to one. She has always had the firepower. What was missing was the patience. On clay, patience is currency. You cannot spend it all in the first 3 shots of a rally. You have to earn your opening, and Gauff at her best now understands that. Her breakpoint conversion has been strong, and crucially, her first serve holds up under pressure. If she draws a quarter of the draw that opens up, and draws are random, they are chaos with a seeding system bolted onto it, she is absolutely a contender. Elena Rybakina. Serve, net approach, clean ball striking. On a fast indoor hard court, she is arguably the most dangerous player in the world when she is healthy and moving freely. But clay complicates everything for Rybakina because the surface absorbs her flat serve, slows down her transition game, and forces her into extended baseline exchanges where her movement, which has been inconsistent, gets exposed. However, and this is the critical caveat, she beat Sabalenka last year in a manner that suggested she has genuinely cracked the tactical code on how to disrupt Sabalenka's rhythm. Flatten the ball, attack the body, take time away. If Rybakina is healthy, she is a quarter-final or better player in Paris. The question mark is always fitness with her. Now, let me tell you the scenario that actually keeps tournament directors up at night. Sabalenka arrives in Paris, plays herself into form in the first week, which she is entirely capable of doing because her game translates to clay in the second week better than almost anyone else's, given her court coverage and her ability to redirect pace. And then she runs into either Swiatek or Goff in the quarters, or the semis feeling genuinely right. That is an entirely plausible scenario. And in that scenario, she wins Roland Garros. Because here is what the two match narrative obscures. Sabalenka's clay court record over the last 24 months is exceptional. She has won points in extended rallies on clay at a rate that rivals players who have built their entire game around the surface. The serve, which on clay becomes less of a point ending weapon and more of a rally starting advantage, still gets her free points because her first serve to the tee on the deuce side forces returners into a defensive position that she then attacks with the forehand. That pattern doesn't disappear because of a back issue, it pauses. What I'm watching for in the next 10 days is simple. Does Sabalenka take a wild card into a tune up event, or does she rest and arrive in Paris fresh but match tight? The back injury makes the rest option more sensible physically. But tennis matches require rhythm, and rhythm requires matches. She cannot simulate the tension of a third set tiebreak in practice. Nobody can. So there is genuine risk in arriving without competitive minutes, and that is where Roddick's warning about an awkward matchup early becomes very real. A seeded player in the second or third round who has been on clay for 3 weeks, someone like Donna Vekic or Beatrice Haddad Maia, players who thrive on red dirt and have been accumulating confidence, could make Sabalenka's first week genuinely uncomfortable. Here's my read on the next 3 months of this story. I think she walks onto court Philippe Chatrier in the second week and reminds everyone exactly why the preseason favorite narrative was not hype, but the margin is thinner than it was in April. And if you are Iga Swiatek, if you are Coco Gauff, if you are anyone in that draw who has been watching this clay swing with a notepad, you are not scared of Aryna Sabalenka right now. And that is the most dangerous thing you could ever be heading into Roland Garros. Not scared of the best player in the world. Play for 3 weeks, someone like Donna Vekic or Beatrice Haddad Maia, players who thrive on red dirt and have been accumulating confidence, could make Sabalenka's first week genuinely uncomfortable. Here's my read on the next 3 months of this story. I think she walks onto court Philippe Chatrier in the second week and reminds everyone exactly why the preseason favorite narrative was not hype, but the margin is thinner than it was in April. And if you are Iga Swiatek, if you are Coco Gauff, if you are anyone in that draw who has been watching this clay swing with a notepad, you are not scared of Aryna Sabalenka right now. And that is the most dangerous thing you could ever be heading into Roland Garros.